And yet over and over, Jesus clearly distinguished himself from God, saying, the Father is greater than I, serve only the Father, worship only the Father has sent me. He makes it very clear that he is not God.
This woman is not a Muslim. She is Elizabeth Bird, a devoted Christian scholar who has spent years studying ancient scriptures and religious history. With a deep passion for knowledge and truth, she immersed herself in early biblical manuscripts that most people today have never even heard of. As she examined these ancient texts, she began to uncover something truly unexpected. What she found was that the teachings of Jesus in these early writings were profoundly different from what is taught in most modern churches. According to her research, the Jesus of ancient scriptures was a humble messenger of peace, preaching love, compassion, and goodness among people. But never once did he claim to be God.
The reason that Christianity doesn't actually make sense is because it's not a religion that's created around the teachings of Jesus. It's a religion that was created with a specific narrative in mind, and then they just reshaped Jesus's teachings to fit that narrative. Let's not forget that Jesus had a powerful movement that was not afraid to be killed, to be persecuted, and this was a huge threat to Rome. So what they did is they got in front of the movement and created a religion that would still serve them in the end. How they did that is by deifying Jesus and making him seem like he's equal to God. And yet over and over, Jesus clearly distinguished himself from God, saying, the Father is greater than I, serve only the Father, worship only the Father has sent me. He makes it very clear that he is not God. He says, I and the Father are one, but that is not the same as being equal to God. And yet 300 years later, Rome and a bunch of early church fathers create a creed and put Jesus up in the Holy Trinity, which separated us from him, because now we can never be like him, which is what they want. Because if they had millions of Christed people walking around having the same effect that Jesus did, then their entire system would collapse. And so what they did was they created this separation, and again, not based on Jesus' teachings. They then reshaped it and gave you other interpretations of those teachings to just help you have some peace of mind. But if you read just Jesus directly, it is very clear that he never said that he was God.
For Elizabeth, this realization was not only startling, it was deeply troubling. How could the core message of love and humility be replaced by doctrines that revolve around divine blood, sacrificial death, and redemption through suffering? Driven by a need for answers, she began to ask the difficult question, where did all these drastic changes come from? As she continued her study, she became more and more convinced that the transformation of Jesus' message did not happen by accident. It was introduced deliberately. And at the heart of this transformation, she found one controversial figure, Paul. In her view, Paul was the one who altered the original path. He introduced new ideas and reframed the image of Jesus in a way that aligned more with Greco-Roman theological concepts than with the authentic spiritual message of early Christianity. She even referred to Paul as a false prophet, a phrase she believes was hinted at in several early writings. For her, Paul's influence became the turning point, the source of a theological shift that would shape Christianity for centuries. Elizabeth's findings have sparked both controversy and curiosity. While some may reject her conclusions, others find in her work a call to re-examine the roots of faith with intellectual honesty and spiritual integrity. For Elizabeth Bird, this journey isn't about attacking belief, it's about seeking truth. She believes that behind the layers of history and interpretation lies a pure and universal message, one that deserves to be known, not just by scholars, but by anyone who longs to understand the essence of divine truth.
Sometimes I wonder, where did Christianity go so wrong? Because truly, Jesus' teachings were so beautiful. Loving your neighbor, compassion, forgiveness, good works, the kingdom being within you, God being this loving father, all of this beauty. And yet the version we have today is fixated on blood and sacrifice and atonement and sin. And honestly, all this pagan ritual sounding bullshit that I don't get it. I don't get where it went wrong. And then I remember, oh yeah, Paul is where it went wrong. You have no idea how many Christians I have heard say, well, you can't have Jesus without Paul. And you guys are absolutely insane. Like, this is probably the false prophet that he warned about that would come in his name and distort the teachings. You guys think it's, coming now. It's like, no, he was speaking to his disciples in that time period. Paul started teaching his gospel, which was what he called it, his gospel, 20 or more years after Jesus died, right? So the movement was alive and well for 20 plus years before Paul came along. And I'm like 24, so that's a long time. That's like my entire life for me to know one version of Christianity before some guy comes along, had some hallucinations, claims that he has the true message of Jesus more than his own brother James, more than the disciples who knew him in real life. It's honestly crazy. I've been reading this book called Paul and Jesus by James Tabor, who has been studying this topic for like 40 something years, probably even more now. And he makes an interesting point that we need to read the New Testament backwards, where we need to start with Paul's teachings that go back to, I think, 50 AD or even maybe 30 AD, I don't know. And then you can see how his theology seeped into the canonical gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, because they are from around 60 AD. And you see all the similarities. It's not meant to be read in the order that it is, because Paul heavily influenced what was included in the Bible. Because again, Christianity wanted one unified, theology, doctrine, and text to live by, and that wasn't what was going on. There was many Christianities in those first 100 years after Jesus died. And again, just pointing out that before he came along to distort everything, there was a version of Christianity out there that had nothing to do with his view, his revelations, and it was much more aligned with what Jesus actually teached. But unfortunately, Paul had ties with Roman people, he was a Roman citizen, and he had connections, and I think for whatever reason they pushed his Gentile teachings to the forefront and kind of used those in the New Testament. And it's really unfortunate because we really don't know what those early Christians really believed. They wiped them out. They pretty much killed them because, again, they wanted unity, and they destroyed their teachings, they destroyed their texts, and just pushed what aligned with their narrative. And Paul just happened to be the tool, the plant that they used to create that version of Christianity. And honestly, 6 out of 13 of the epistles or letters that are attributed to Paul weren't even written by Paul. So obviously people were just slapping his name. He became this authority figure of a completely different message, and anything that aligned with that message was like, oh yeah, that's Pauline. So we are either living in a time of churchianity or Paulianity, but it's definitely not Christianity, unfortunately.